Welcome back to the Headline Roast, where the global news cycle gets grilled so well, even Microsoft's HR team can't restructure it. It's Wednesday, May 14th, 2025, and today's headlines include presidential mega deals, surprise ceasefires, AI-fueled layoffs, and America finally figuring out what to do with Syria. Subscribe now. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and weekend. We roast the headlines so you can stay informed, snarky, and slightly smarter than your group chat. Let's get into it. Story 1. Trump secures $1.2 trillion in Middle East deals. President Trump wrapped up his Middle East tour with over $1.2 trillion in signed deals. And yes, that's trillion with a T. The agreements span defense infrastructure, aviation, AI, and enough oil-backed tech partnerships to make Wall Street tingle. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE led the charge, promising massive investments in American companies. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and a few lucky AI startups are already popping champagne. Supporters are calling it a landmark diplomatic success. Critics argue it's just high-stakes salesmanship with international photo ops. The administration insists this boosts U.S. jobs and cements alliances. Detractors say it deepens dependence on authoritarian petrostates. Meanwhile, the press corps spent more time covering golden sword dances than actual policy terms. Whether you love or loathe it, Trump's trip was anything but low-key. If diplomacy had a Black Friday, this was it. Story 2. US lifts sanctions on Syria after regime change in a stunning pivot. The U.S. has lifted all sanctions on Syria. The move comes after the establishment of a new transitional government, replacing Bashar al-Assad's decades-long rule. The White House framed the decision as a chance for economic recovery and renewed diplomacy. Allies are cautiously supportive, while human rights groups are watching for signs of meaningful reform. Critics warn this could normalize a regime still tainted by civil war atrocities. The State Department says the new leadership has committed to unmonitored elections. American businesses are already eyeing infrastructure projects and energy contracts. Meanwhile, Syrian citizens remain skeptical, burned by too many promises and too little progress. It's a diplomatic gamble, with oil, alliances, and reputation on the table. One thing's clear: Washington just flipped the Syria chapter. Whether it reads like redemption or déjà vu depends on what happens next. Story 3. Libya declares ceasefire. After Tripoli clashes, Tripoli was in chaos earlier this week as rival militias clashed violently, leaving dozens dead in neighborhoods and ruins. After international pressure and civilian outcry, Libya's government of national unity announced a ceasefire. It's being hailed as a step toward stability, but Libyans have heard that tune before. Ceasefires in Libya tend to last about as long as viral dance trends. Local leaders say they're committed to peace. Skeptics point to the fact that no one's disarmed, and trust is running on fumes. International observers are monitoring, but with limited leverage. The UN is urging long-term political talks. Civilians are more focused on repairing schools and dodging the next round of shelling. It's a fragile pause, not a resolution. Still, in a city used to dodging bullets, even a temporary silence is something to exhale over. Story 4. UK plans major prison expansion. Overcrowding in British prisons has reached crisis levels. The UK government is planning to build 3 new prisons and implement early release for certain inmates to relieve pressure. The move follows years of warnings from watchdog groups and court rulings about inhumane conditions. Critics say this is too little too late, and question whether building more prisons is the right answer. The early release plan has sparked controversy, with concerns about public safety and political optics. Home Secretary Kemi Badenoch says the goal is capacity and rehabilitation. Opponents argue it's damage control ahead of an election cycle. Meanwhile, correctional officers are overworked and quitting in droves. Advocacy groups call for systemic reform, not just square footage. Either way, the UK is about to spend big on bricks, bars, and maybe fewer bunks per cell. The question is, will it work? Or just buy more time? Story 5. Operation Keller. India takes down militant cell in Kashmir in a high-profile raid dubbed Operation Keller. Indian security forces dismantled a militant cell in Shopian, Kashmir. 3 members of the Lashkar-e group were killed, and a large cache of weapons and explosives was recovered. The operation follows a string of intelligence reports warning of potential attacks. Indian officials hailed it as a victory for national security and counter-terrorism strategy. The region, long plagued by insurgent activity and civil unrest, remains tense. Human rights groups are calling for transparency into how the raid was conducted. Locals reported gunfire and lockdowns that disrupted daily life. Pro-government media praised the precision. Opposition leaders questioned timing and political motives. Kashmiris are caught in the middle. Again, the success of the raid is clear, but so is the fragile state of peace. Another day, another operation. But the deeper conflict remains unresolved. Story 6. Mali erupts in pro-democracy protests for the first time since 2020. Malians are marching in the streets again. Hundreds gathered in Bamako to protest the military junta's proposal to dissolve political parties and extend its rule. Activists say it's a last-ditch effort to save democracy from a slow, silent erosion. The military insists it's ensuring stability during a turbulent time. Protesters call it a power grab dressed in khaki. Security forces have responded with a mix of restraint and intimidation. Social media is ablaze with rally footage and hashtags like #Mali Democracy Now. International NGOs are warning of escalating repression. France and the African Union are urging dialogue. Again. Meanwhile, ordinary Malians just want a say in who governs them. The protests may be small for now, but in a country this politically combustible, even a spark can light a fire. Story 7. Microsoft lays off 7,000. Employees in AI restructuring. Microsoft just joined the layoff club. Again. About 7,000 employees, roughly 3% of its global workforce, are being shown the door. The cuts span cloud services, LinkedIn, and mid-tier management. The reason? A strategic shift toward AI and operational efficiency, which is tech speak for. The bots are taking your job. Executives say it's about agility and innovation. Affected employees say it's a rug pull in the middle of record profits. The company reported strong earnings last quarter, but is now trimming staff to invest more heavily in generative AI and automation. Labor groups are furious. Investors, not so much. The stock ticked up. Somewhere, Clippy is still trying to help. And probably just got laid off too. Story 8. Qatar Airways orders 160 Boeing jets. Qatar Airways is going all in on Boeing, placing an order for 160 jets as part of the larger U.S.-Qatar trade boom. The deal covers a mix of 787 Dreamliners, 777Xs, and next-gen cargo planes. It's a win for American manufacturing and a lifeline for Boeing after years of turbulence. The airline says it's preparing for explosive growth in post-pandemic travel. Aviation unions are thrilled. Environmentalists, not so much, pointing to emissions and infrastructure concerns. Boeing execs called it a vote of confidence. Airline analysts say it's also a bet on rising tourism and global shipping. The agreement follows other massive investments from the Gulf into the U.S. economy. And passengers, it's just hoping the Wi-Fi actually works this time. High-altitude deals, grounded expectations. Story 9. House Committee advances sweeping. Tax reform bill. A major tax reform bill just cleared its first hurdle in the House. The proposal includes fewer tax brackets, cuts to corporate rates, and streamlined deductions. Republicans say it'll jumpstart business and simplify tax season. Democrats say it's a gift to the wealthy disguised as reform. The bill also proposes eliminating some credits and tightening loopholes. Policy experts are divided on how it'll impact deficits and wages. TurboTax is lobbying hard behind the scenes. The legislation now heads to the full House for debate, where the drama will only intensify. With an election year looming, both sides are sharpening their talking points. If passed, it would be the biggest tax overhaul since 2017. Buckle up, because taxes just got political again. Story 10. S&P 500 turns positive for the year after months of turbulence. The S&P 500 has finally entered the green for 2025. It's the first time since February that markets have shown consistent upward momentum. Analysts credit the bounce to easing trade tensions, tech earnings, and strong consumer spending. Investors are cautiously optimistic. Funds are less cautious. They're already hedging. Some sectors, like energy and semiconductors, are leading the charge. Others are dragging their feet. Financial networks are back to smiling anchors and excited headlines. But don't let the charts fool you. Volatility is still lurking. Economic indicators remain mixed, and Fed policy is anything but settled. Still, for the first time in months, Wall Street has something to celebrate. Till next week, anyway. Brainteaser. Last episode's question. What has a neck but no head? Wears a cap but has no hair? Answer: a bottle. Today's teaser. What 5-letter word becomes shorter when you add 2 letters to it? Hint: it's not a riddle. It's a word trick. Answer in the next episode. That's your Wednesday wrap. Trillion-dollar tours, layoffs in Silicon Valley, and peace treaties with expiration dates. Subscribe if you want to sound brilliant and bitter without rage-scrolling 10 apps. We'll be back Friday. Until then, stay skeptical, stay hydrated, and if your job just got replaced by AI, hey, at least the algorithm can't take your lunch break.
Yet.